Morning. Oh shit. A little out of it today. It's gonna be a short one. I fucking didn't get much sleep last night, y'all. Got about 4 hours. And I'm feeling it. So it's gonna be a short one. I'm not even doing the stairs. What's up, Shot Killings? I'm actually just gonna do the trail. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna do the actual stairs. Just gonna do the trail a few times because your boy did not get much sleep. But I still decided to put this damn 70 pounds worth of equipment on and come out here. But boy, today is gonna be a deload day, y'all. So it's good, y'all. I was gonna do an open panel discussion, but I think I'm gonna just do it a little later. You know, right now I just wanna touch on a little bit of something. And I'm actually so out of it. I was supposed to watch Brandon Tatum's video about how he said your opinion is not law. And hold on. Man, y'all. Even though I'm a little out of it, you know, you still have to, well, you don't have to, but I still have chosen to come out here and do this rucking live, right? Do this rucking live because, you know, even though I only got 4 hours of sleep, you know, I still wanted to do something, right? Because Friday, I didn't do any training at all. So I figure, you know, why not? But I tell you what, I'm gonna get some good ass sleep tonight. Man, I'm going to bed early. So what happened was, I went out last night. My wife took me out for Father's Day celebration. And, you know, took me out for Father's Day celebration, even though it's not Father's Day yesterday. She took me out yesterday because we didn't want to deal with the crowds, right, on Father's Day Sunday. So we're like, let's do it today, or Saturday. So that's what we did. But anyway, guys, woo, let me tell y'all something. Once you get old like me, I'm an old man. Once you get old like me, y'all, sleep is very important. Sleep is very important, especially if you're active. If you're active like me, yo, at least 6 hours of sleep. I would say more. The older you get, I feel like the more sleep you should get. Hell, there's gonna be one day where I'm going to sleep for 12 hours. So that's gonna be a good day. Right now I'm just rambling because I'm trying to get my thoughts together. and you know what? Sometimes you have to put yourself through this type of stress because you might get tested in real life and you have to be able to adapt, right? Right now I'm adapting to my brain farts, right? The lack of energy, right? I don't have much energy right now. I can't formulate my thoughts very well. And I know it's because I didn't get much sleep last night. And not only did I not get much sleep last night, but I worked out yesterday. I went hard in the paint yesterday. You know what I'm saying? I burned like 3,900 calories. Y'all saw me. I was on the bike with during my interview yesterday with Babu. I was on my bike. You know, I burned like 600 calories there. And then I did a workout earlier in the day. I used my 5-pound jump rope all the way down to my 1/4-pound jump rope. I did that for about 30 minutes before I did some Muay Thai and boxing drills on the heavy bag. Well, not on the heavy bag, but on my Century Bob. I got a Century Bob in the house, in the crib, or in the garage. Woo! NRK Television, Tina Hardman. I'm not sure about my camping gear is about that many pounds. Yeah, that's good. And you should, you know, it's good to practice carrying that around. And that's why I do what I do, y'all. Right? That's what I do. I fucking say, you know what, I got 4 hours of sleep. But in the shit hit the fan situation, you might not have the luxury of having more than 4 hours of sleep. So it's good to put yourself through the test, because you might have to move locations, right? Something might be going on. The dogs might be out hounding you. You know what I'm saying? You got to move. So, you know, they're not going to say, oh, you know what? Hold on. We're going to let you get a couple more hours of sleep. No, you got to be able to get up and go. And that's why they put us through a lot of sleep deprivation when I was in the Army. You know what I mean? When you're in the military, they put you through that because you might not have the luxury of sleep. It's not just so they can be dicks to you. Let me see what else y'all talking about. If opinions are not law, that logic, that means that the judges in the Supreme Court decisions are not all, they are nothing but opinions. Exactly. What he's talking about when he says opinions are not law, exactly. These judges, these politicians, they don't create laws. They're opinions, right? They're instructions, right? And instructions are not laws. Facts. That's a great point. Anarchy TV. Whew. Let's see. Derek C. Williams says, rest day for me. Back in my 6 days of body weight training routine. Late to the party, but greetings to Snapzilla Gorilla. Listening to you live on their tube. Man, I barely just started. I try to get at least 7 hours of sleep, bare minimum. Yeah, that's usually what I do. Wasn't happening. I tried to get more, but we don't have those like blackout curtains. You know what I'm saying? And just, it was too much sunlight pouring in. But, you know, I'm taking it easy. I'm taking it easy during this Ruckin' Live. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, about last night, guys, I was listening to Brother Sanchez's live stream last night, and they were talking about the Constitution. He had some guys on his panel. They were talking about the Constitution, and, you know, they were going into how the Constitution was not written for us. This one guy said that the Constitution was not written for the people. It was written by the rulers, and it was written for the rulers. And this other guy was trying to explain that's not true. The Constitution was written to put limits on the government, right? You know what I'm saying? All that type of shit. But that's true. You know, it was supposed to be for the people, right? And then it just got into this whole, the United States became a corporation and all this other shit, and how we're property of the government because, you know, we have social security numbers and this, that, and the third. And yeah, that's cool, man, right? At the end of the day, the Constitution, and this was the thing, the argument was resting on the Constitution giving us rights. That's not what it does, right? The Constitution is supposed to recognize, right, and protect or give instructions to the government to protect our rights by placing limits on the government, right? But One thing about the Constitution, it does not nearly place enough limits on the government, right? If the government can control your life in any form or fashion, then the Constitution is not doing this job, right? You're not a free individual as long as the government can tell you what you can and can't do, where you can go. If the Constitution, what's going on, brother? The Constitution told us that the Congress has the power to lay taxes and to start wars. That already contradicts what it's supposed to do, which is protect, and limit the government. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, the Constitution is just a piece of paper. It doesn't grant you rights, and it doesn't grant the government the ability to grant you rights or take them away, right? If an individual or a group of individuals can take your rights away through legislation, then you're not free. The Constitution is not doing its job. They've been shitting on the Constitution since its inception. At the end of the day, what you need is true freedom. And to achieve that, you have to eliminate government rule, period. There's no way around it. See what y'all talking about real quick. The Constitution was in fact written by white men who were essentially the Crown's renegades. Exactly. I yield to that. The Africans that were enslaved at that time was considered upon the drafting. Exactly. Right. But that's why they implemented the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, right? To make, everybody, citizens of the country or whatever. But this is the bottom line. We started getting into sovereignty, right? Sovereign citizenship. And, Brother Sanchez, a well-read brother apparently. I don't really watch too much of his content. I just stumbled across that live stream. But anyway, started getting into sovereign citizenship, right? And how he was talking about how there are people that are documented sovereign citizens, right? And how they went through the tedious process of applying for that sovereignty and doing all that, right? I'm gonna get an application and I'm gonna go through the government system and their bureaucracy to obtain my sovereignty. And my position is that you can do that, but it's just gonna be symbolic, right? If the government that you're gaining your sovereignty from is still in place and still has control over the lands, then your sovereignty is symbolic. Even if you get pulled over by the cops and get out of getting issued a ticket because you have convinced that cop that you're a sovereign citizen, right? At the end of the day, what's most important, if you don't have land, resources, and security, a military force to defend your sovereignty, then your sovereignty is a paper tiger. Point blank and period. Right? And guess what? The government, they can grant you that sovereignty, but they don't have to respect it. If they need something from you, right? Let's say you get some land somewhere and it's yours. That land is still under government rulership, right? That land is still under government rulership. You applying for sovereignty does not release those lands from government rulership, because the government has eminent domain over your land, right? And even if you somehow got your land to be sovereign, this government is still in place. If you have land, if you have sovereign land somewhere in this country, right, or anywhere the U.S. government has control, then that government does not have to respect your sovereignty or their sovereign land. They can go ahead and invade that sovereign land, and guess what? If you don't have the means to defend it, if you don't have the resources, if you cannot operate wholly and completely outside of that government system, your sovereignty ain't shit. You understand what I'm saying? It's symbolic. Period. What you have to do, right? What has to be done is you can establish your lands, you can start building your resources, you can start doing all that stuff, but at the end of the day, you have to, guess what? Guess what system has to be out of place? Guess what you have to eliminate, right? Guess what you have to eliminate? You have to eliminate that central government that rules over all the states, right? That controls the lands. If that's still in place, you ain't got shit with your sovereignty, period, right? So that's why I always say you have to decentralize the government and give the states their powers back. Release all those federal lands that aren't part of the federal government anymore, right? Aren't part of the states. And then you can obtain your own land and maybe start your own state, right? That's true sovereignty. That's what sovereignty is. That's what sovereignty is. Sovereignty is having supreme authority over your sphere of influence, right? If you call yourself a sovereign citizen and the government can still fuck with you and they are supreme over you and everything that you have influence over, then guess what? You're not sovereign because you don't have the supreme authority over your sphere of influence. The government still does, even though you have that little piece of paper, even though you have private on your license plate. So at the end of the day, that sovereignty is too delicate. It's too fragile. More work has to be done. You can't apply for freedom, right? And so, let me see what y'all talking about real quick. Yeah. Sovereign citizens are public servants because they are citizens working under sovereign authority. Exactly. Guess what? The United States government is sovereign, right? It controls the lands of this nation solely, right? No one can tell the people of the federal government what to do in their own country. That's sovereignty, right? You have to be able to defend your sovereignty to the fullest. You know what I'm saying? If you're being sovereign over yourself, I mean, that's really not, what is that doing, right? Because I asked him, I said, I told him that sovereign people, what do they have? What resources do they have? What sovereign land do they have, right? And he was trying to tell me, oh, they don't need that, this, that, and the third. He was telling me that they're moving about the country as sovereign citizens who, they're moving about the country as sovereign citizens, doing what they want to do, this, that, and the third. But they're not. They're doing what they're allowed to do, right? They might have the illusion of a little bit more freedom than someone, who's not sovereign, who doesn't have that paperwork. But at the end of the day, if they have to go through government bureaucracy and apply for sovereignty, then they don't have that sovereignty. They're asking permission to be sovereign. That's not how it works, right? That's not how it works. This government, right? The founders of the Constitution, right? Whether they were black, white, whatever, the idea of the government was to represent the people of this country and protect their rights, right? And form an alliance among states to defend it against foreign influence. And guess what else? A tyrannical government, right? If you're a sovereign individual and you by yourself and you run around, driving around, and you think, oh, I don't have to pay registration fees. I don't have to pay this ticket. I don't have to do that. Then you missed the plot, right? You missed the plot. You're being quailed. They're telling you, here you go. Here's your sovereignty. Go ahead. Don't call us no fuss. You know what I'm saying? And when we're ready to come snatch you up, we'll do it. But until then, enjoy your illusion of freedom. Right? They're two separate things. And I think that's where we diverge. I'm trying to be a free man. I'm not really concerned about sovereignty, right? Until I become free. When I obtain my freedom, okay, then let's work on our sovereignty. Let's build our security forces. Let's create treaties and alliances with other nations. If you're not doing that as a sovereign individual, then it doesn't matter, right? And then he tried to tell me about some old, there are tribes that are still like stuck in time and use bow and arrows and all this other shit. And the government doesn't fuck with them, right? And he says that's because they know that the government would get a lot of blowback from the people if they started fucking with nations or tribes that can't even stand up to the government power or government force. No, that's not why at all. Those indigenous tribes that they don't fuck with them because they don't need anything from them at that point, right? As soon as they discover that those tribes are sitting on land that have resources that they want, if they really want that, trust me, they're gonna fuck with them, right? And then he started talking about, oh, they'll send Catholic and missionaries in there. That's the same thing. They're still being invaded. Their culture is still being infiltrated. And ultimately, what ends up happening, that tribe, that small nation, has succumbed to what? Imperial rule, right? You know what I'm saying? So he said that's why they wouldn't mess with sovereign individuals in this country. Because, they'd have to, get the people on their side. Like, unless those sovereign individuals come together and form a force that has the strength to even pretend like they're going to defend themselves, that's when that would happen. But if you just drive around by yourself in a car and you talking about you sovereign, you know what I'm saying? But they see you as a threat or a potential threat, they can snatch your ass up and make you disappear. They'll make you disappear, right? They'll make you disappear and no one will ever see you again. And there won't be no record of you. You know why? Because you have erased yourself from their system. And no one can even raise a stink about you because guess what? You don't exist. As soon as you do that, you know what I'm saying? You don't exist. And guess what? Your sovereignty could be shoved up your ass and bury you. And you can be buried 6 feet deep. If that. Because you don't exist. You don't exist in their system. So anybody that loves you, anybody that's family, they can say, oh, well, where's my family member? They're missing. And the cop's gonna be like, hey, he's not in our system. There's nothing we can do about it, right? So when I brought that up to him, then he decided to concede and say, well, you would need a group and some land. And at the end of the day, he had to turn around and concede to what I was saying while not conceding. But even if you have a large group of sovereign individuals that are operating on their own, in their own lands, if you're a perceived threat to the existing government, guess what? They will come for your ass. And guess what? Your sovereignty won't stop it, right? If you don't have the resources, if you don't have the means to defend it, it means nothing at the end of the day. So what's the key? What's the key to that? Well, if you don't want the government fucking with your sovereignty, guess what you got to do? Guess what you got to do? You got to eliminate that government structure, right? You have to break it down. You got to break it down. Like I said, decentralize it to start, and then the states will be sovereign, right? There'll be sovereign states, like it was meant to be, like it was in the beginning. And then you'll have a better time operating in your own sovereignty. You can start your own sovereign state, right? And you can create treaties with those other states. And you can build alliances with the other states and bring your armies together to defend all the land as a whole if foreign invaders or if foreign countries want to fuck with you. You understand? So, you know, that's just what it is. That's just what it is. I'm not saying don't apply for your sovereignty. I'm not saying don't do that. What I'm saying is understand that it's symbolic, right? Even if you get your straw man account money given back to you. Okay, so you have a lot of money, but guess what? Where you gonna spend it? Where you gonna spend it? How are you gonna get the things you need? You have to trade and barter with people that are still operating under the government system. Let me see what y'all talking about. Wax dog. Why do they think we need them to help us? SIP, SLP Music Group. Who is them? Well, see, that's the thing, Derek Williams. There are people that are applying for sovereignty so they don't have to use a driver's license or license plates. Now, this can be done, right? But you're still an individual. You're not a nation. You're just an individual who decided to uncouple yourself from the government to an extent. So that's what the sovereign citizenship is about. It's about releasing yourself from the requirement of doing all that, but you still have to get permission from the government. You still got to get a permission slip from the government to even gain your sovereignty, right? Your symbolic sovereignty. But, you know, what do we know about free men? Free men don't ask permission. They just do it. They just act in their freedom. And that's just what the bottom line. That's the bottom line. John McAfee just got whacked in a Spanish prison. He said he never committed suicide. The government work. Sovereignty, I agree in theory, but practical application, good luck. Exactly. One can say that You know, John McAfee acted within his sovereignty and took his money and left the country because guess what? That's his money. He earned that. He didn't want to get extorted anymore. But guess what? If you leave the country, you still have to pay the government taxes if you make money. You can live in another country all you want, right? But supposedly, if you gain your sovereignty, you wouldn't have to do that. You wouldn't have to do that. But guess what? You better be equipped. You better be equipped to be self-sufficient. And that's all I was saying to him. You got to be self-sufficient. You got to have the means to defend what you got. You got to have land. You got to have resources because you can't get any of that from the government. You can't get resources from the government, period. So you got to have that shit for yourself. You got to have that established, right? So then this clown, Brother Sanchez, started getting mad, started calling me dummies and idiots, right? Because he don't have an answer to what I'm telling him. He's fighting the reality. He's fighting the reality because he wants so badly to be able to go through the government system, right? He wants to be able to go to the government. He wants to ask permission for the government to gain his sovereignty. And when I'm telling him that's not even close to a reality. That's not even something close to substantive. He gets mad, starts calling me an idiot, right? And that's fine. He calls me dumb. And then when I tell him he's launching ad hominem attacks, I said, why are you launching ad hominem attacks? Why don't you just stand on your argument? Why don't you provide evidence for your argument instead of, you know what I'm saying, launching ad hominem attacks? And then all of a sudden, you know, and he's calling this a debate. It's not a debate. It's not a debate when, you know, it's not structured as a debate. And if you're debating with somebody and you can cut them off with the mute button, that's not a debate. In a debate, you're supposed to give people a certain amount of time, uninterrupted, right? Uninterrupted amount of time to state their point. And a moderator has to make sure that that's being done. If you don't have a moderator and your debaters don't have a certain amount of time to make their points, whether it's stupid or not, whether they're misrepresenting what you're saying or not, then that's not a debate. If you can cut each other off, launch ad hominems and all this other shit, then that's not a real debate. Don't call it that. Just call it an argument. You know what I'm saying? He acts like he's this intellectual, you know what I'm saying? And let me tell you something about these intellectuals, man. These intellectuals, you know, they think they got it all together up here. But when it comes to actually applying that knowledge that they're talking about, they stumble, right? They stumble. I don't know Brother Sanchez like that. But, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. You know? I'm dumb because I'm not agreeing with him or because I'm not submitting to his, you know, his line of reasoning. That's not how it works, right? Let me see. It's all right, anarchy. The only sovereign are human flesh and blood people. The state and the government are not legal fictions. They do not exist except on paper and cannot be sovereign. Well, yeah, exactly. But the rulers that use this government system to rule over people, those are the sovereign ones, right? Because they have authority over you, but no one has authority over them. Yo, fuck, man. The Soviet. Yeah, there she went. Have you seen? Have you watched any of his live streams? Those aren't debates, man. Those are arguments, right? And he was talking about, well, in a debate, you can shit talk and this, that, and the third, and you can launch ad hominems and this, that, and but I'm like, but it's a debate, right? So if you really want to prove your point, You don't do that by launching ad hominems. You do that by supporting your argument with evidence and sticking to the argument, right? If I argue a point, then you're supposed to rebut that point, right? But once you start launching ad hominems, yeah, it might be entertaining. It might be entertaining, but to the people who are truly intellectual and truly know what's up, it's not. It's not, right? It's entertaining. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he tried to liken it to, a boxing match or basketball or something like that, where people talk shit on the court. But you can't liken it to that, because it doesn't matter how much shit you talk on the court unless you're winning. And you win by making baskets, right? In basketball. You win in football by making touchdowns, right? You win in boxing by knocking a motherfucker out or winning a decision at the end of the fight. All that shit talking, yeah, it might be entertaining, but it doesn't prove you're the better boxer. It doesn't prove you're the better basketball player. But you have every right to shit talk. But if you're shit talking in a debate and I call you out for it, you know what I'm saying? I could call you out for launching ad hominems, because that helps me point out that you don't have a real argument. So you're resorting to name calling and all this other stuff, not because I'm sensitive. And that's what they try to say. Oh, you're being sensitive. No, you were being sensitive, right? You were being sensitive. And that's why you decided to start name calling, right? You think that'll help you make me look stupid, right? And guess what? To your audience, to your little echo chamber, I might have looked stupid, because you have the ability to shut somebody's mic off. You have, you know what I'm saying? You have that ability. You have that ability to cut somebody off and make your point, no matter how long it takes. Make your point no matter how long it takes. And everybody else that you completely disagree with or is going against what you want them to do, you can make them look stupid by cutting them off, saying this and the third. That does not make you the superior debater at all. That just makes you a big baby. Oh, you're stupid. You're dumb. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. But I thought it was very interesting. Like, they thought I was being sensitive. I was like, nah, man. You sit up here trying to tell me what a real debate is, and you got it all the way wrong, right? In real debates, because I took it, you're supposed to, and you can be entertaining while proving your point with evidence without launching ad hominems at the person you're debating against, because that person has nothing to do personally with what you're arguing about. You understand what I'm saying? But it is what it is. James Miller, yeah, right? And you know what? SLP Music Group, you talking about Brother Sanchez? He's trying to wake people up. But you can do that, right? And I'm not saying he's not trying to wake people up, but there's a level of arrogance that a lot of people won't listen to. Once you start going in a certain direction with it, once you start thinking that you big shit and you King Tut, but you're trying to wake people up at the same time, that's when people start turning their ears off, right? And they're there just to be entertained, right? If you have to be ultra flamboyant and roast people when you're trying to build on a subject, right? Then what you have to say, as far as the substance of your argument, is really not that great, right? Even if you know how to, if you read a lot of books, right, which is no problem, I read books too. But if that's all you got, right, and there's no real world application to it. If you can't lead by example, then that's all it is. That's all it is. And there's places for people like that, right? But they have a lane, they have a place, and their place is not to be the ones out there actually making shit happen. They're the figureheads. They're the targets, right? They're the ones that put their faces out there. That's like, oh, this guy, look what this guy's talking about. Meanwhile, the real work is getting done, and the focus is on him, right? The focus is on him because he's this learned orator who knows how to put words together real well and can repeat and regurgitate what he learned, right? But that's all you got. Oh, head dude says bad news coming down the pipe. What's that, oh head? You can wake folks up by not disrespecting folks who may disagree with you while you give out a word of empowerment. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I wasn't offended or sensitive. I'm just pointing out, oh, you got to resort to calling me idiots and stupid now because this is the context behind it, right? I was giving an example of how you can try to be sovereign, but it's really just symbolic until it's tested, right? It's a symbol until it's really tested, right? And getting pulled over by a cop who was dumb enough to fall for the sovereignty shit, that's not a real test. The test is when the FBI show up to your door because you've been talking a lot of shit and trying to spread the word of sovereignty and showing people how to be sovereign. You know what I'm saying? And trying to spread those bread fryers of freedom. That's when it's tested, right? So I was giving him an example, right? And he didn't understand where I was going with it. And he tried to make me seem like I didn't know what I was talking about or I was off subject, right? So I said, I got friends who had children and they didn't get birth certificates, Social Security cards for those children, right? But guess what? They still live and operate in this government system. They have birth certificates and they have Social Security cards. But they decided, because like Brother Sanchez, they felt like, oh, this is the way to get my children freedom by not giving them birth certificates and Social Security cards, right? And yeah, they didn't do that, right? And they were fine until guess what? Until guess when? Until it was time for them to go to school. It was time for them to go to school. Why? Because they weren't equipped and they weren't prepared to, how long have I been at this? They weren't equipped or prepared to not be able to not have to send their children to school. So guess what they had to go do? They had to go to the government and get a number for their children and put their children in the system. And another friend who also did the same thing, she wanted to leave the country with her children. She wanted to go somewhere. Guess what she had to do? She couldn't get a passport for her children until when? Until she went to the government and got numbers for her children so she can get what? That passport. See what I'm saying? If you're not equipped, if you're not self-sufficient, and you're not prepared to actually operate in your sovereignty, then there's no point, right? That's why I got my children's Social Security cards and birth certificates, because, you know, even though I homeschool my children are homeschooled, right? But guess what? I don't know any doctors that are sovereign, right? I don't know any healthcare workers that are operating in sovereignty. I'm not a doctor. right? I don't have land. I don't have my own resources. I'm not completely self-sufficient. See what I'm saying? So what's the point if I'm not operating in that realm, right? And also, if your children are born out of the system, but you're still operating in the system and you're still dependent on the government in any form of fashion, what happens if you piss the government off and they come to your house and they snatch your children up? Anybody tell me? Guess what? They don't exist because they're not in the system. So you can make a stink. Oh, the government, they came and snatched my children up. Help me. And you can go outside of the U.S. government. You can go to the UN. They say, yo, they took my children. Oh, who's your children? Oh, they're not in the system. Oh, how do we know your children exist? They don't. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? So if you're not operating in that realm, you're not getting a birth certificate and you not getting a social security card, ain't gonna do shit. And at the end of the day, even if you have your own resources, land, all that shit, and the means to defend it to a degree, that federal government can make it very difficult for you to live your life comfortably. And that's why the key to true freedom is to eliminate government. And that's what they, at the end of the day, we all agree to that. We all agree to that. So why are you fighting me so hard on this sovereignty shit? Because he wants to be able to get his sovereignty card and act like he's freer than everybody else. And so, therefore, he's better than you and you ain't on his level. Really, all you did was you begged the government for sovereignty. And that makes you not better than me. Let me see.
So everybody else was camping in their vehicles and he was in a cabin?
Oh, hey, dude, that's why I love you, man.
Oh, okay. Like, almost everyone.
Oh, yeah, Umar Johnson is like that. But Umar Johnson likes to talk about how he got this degree, that degree, and all this other shit. Those are credentials that you obtain through the government. Even though you get it from a university, there are certain guidelines and things like that for that PhD to mean anything. You understand? If you have to beg permission, and that's a funny thing. He told us that when you apply for something, you are begging. You're begging. To apply means to beg. Well, when you apply for your sovereignty, you begging for your motherfucking sovereignty. You see the contradiction? When you point that out, I'm trying to have a gotcha moment. Nah, dude, you're contradictory. I stay firm on my shit. No matter how stupid you try to make me look, I stay firm. The only way to obtain true freedom is to eliminate government rule over you and the lands. Not just you, but you and everyone else that wants to be free and the lands. Now, there are some people that are going to want the government. They're going to want government rule. They're going to want to be operating under authority. They're going to want people to tell them what to do. I'm not speaking for those people. But guess what? They better not speak for me. So if we attain enough freedom and they still choose to live under government rule, they get to make that choice. But leave me the fuck out of it. Leave me out of it and don't try to pull me into it. If you want government ruling over you, fine. I'm not there to take that away from you. I'm not there to take that away from you. But don't try to force that onto me. And we Gucci. And that's the point. So he called me stupid for that, right? Because he's saying that I wasn't understanding what sovereignty is. You don't understand what sovereignty is. And all that shit. I do understand what sovereignty is. I don't think you do. Right? You think a guy running around with a license saying I'm sovereign is sovereignty. No, sovereignty is supreme authority. I think you're conflating freedom with sovereignty. It's not the same shit, right? It's not the same shit. You can be free and sovereign, but you can be sovereign and not free, right? Oh no, wait, you can't be sovereign without having freedom. You can't have sovereignty without having freedom, period. Because if you were sovereign, no one can take that away from you at all without a fight. I mean, you have to match force with force, point blank and period. And we can't meet force for force with the government, but we can dismantle it. You understand what I'm saying? And once we dismantle it, then we can go from there. You can't gain sovereignty until you dismantle this government, in my opinion. Let me see. New York rapper maced a whole family, rammed the car, and ejected 11-year-old. What? That's crazy. That's crazy. Earlier this month, U.S. revolutionaries do have to play the game to get benefit from. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sovereign and I'm not a free individual, but I try to operate in freedom as much as I can. I try to have some control over my life as much as I can. As much as I can do it, I will. You know what I'm saying? So he also called me stupid because he was telling me about the whole Social Security thing. He starts going into, we're slaves, and he tried to say that it's consent of the government, right? You're consenting to the government right now. No, you're not, right? Because there's no opt-out button. He thinks that sovereignty, right, applying for sovereignty is the opt-out button, but that's not how it works, right? So I tried to tell him, you don't comply. When you become part of this government system, you're not complying. Because at birth, right, at birth, your parents get you a Social Security number and a birth certificate, and you have no control over that. You can't consent if those decisions are being made for you. How are you consenting? So you can't consent as a newborn if your parents are forcing you. And he tried to move the goalpost. Oh, well, that's because you're a slave, and as a parent, you're a slave master, right? You're a slave master to your child, you know what I'm saying? And you're a slave to the government. And then he said, a slave cannot be a slave master. I repeat, he said that I, as a parent, I'm a slave master to my children, right? I'm a slave master to my children, but I'm a slave to the government. But a slave master or a slave cannot be a slave master. Can y'all tell me where that makes sense at? Does that make sense to you? What happened to your main channel? I've seen or hot army notification. Oh yeah. Darcy Williams' channel got taken down. He had to start a new one. So y'all go check out Derek Williams' new channel and go sub to him again. Every there too took the channel. So, what's up, Michael Swanson? So, I pointed that out. I said, whoa. You just said that a slave master or a slave cannot be a slave master. But you said I was my child's slave master and I'm a slave. He said, yeah. I'm like, you don't see where that's contradictory? And that's when he started calling me stupid, right? I knew the basic premise of what he was saying. I knew he was saying that we're all slaves, right? But in order to make a point and argue, in order to disprove what I was saying, right, about children not being able to consent to anything, because at birth, we are forced to opt in to the government system. In order to prove me wrong, he tried to tell me that my parents enslaved me, right? My parents enslaved me, but they're slaves. But a slave cannot be a slave master. So when I pointed that out, I said, you're just contradicting yourself. You said that a slave can't be a slave master, but you said that I'm a slave and then my children, I'm a slave master over my children. And then he said, oh no, you're a slave master for that 5 minutes after they're born until you sign the birth certificate, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, now you trying to add extras. Now you're trying to move the goalpost once again to prove yourself right. But I'm trying to have a gotcha moment because I pointed out your contradictions. So now I'm stupid and I'm dumb because he feels like I don't understand that we're all slaves, right? And then Question Everything got in there and said, we're all slaves at the end of the... He tried to tell me what Brother Sanchez said at first was correct. When he said that I'm a slave master to my children and I'm also a slave, he tried to say that I'm correct, or that, no, Brother Sanchez is correct. And I'm like, if you're saying that we're all slaves, my children are slaves, I'm a slave, my boss is a slave because the government rules over all of us. Yeah, if that's what he's saying, but he didn't say that. He said that I am a slave master. That's what he said. He said I'm my child's slave master. And then said a slave can't be a slave master. So it doesn't make sense. So even if he's trying to say I'm a slave master until I sign my children over. No, I'm not my child. Now help me out. Now stay with me, guys. He's saying that I'm my child's slave master until I sign them into slavery, into the government. I sign them into government slavery. What up? My bad, y'all. Fuck it. So he's trying to say, because I have authority over my children, then I'm their slave master. No, I'm not their slave master, right? I'm their guide. I have authority over them because they're children. They're still developing. They need that authority and they need that guidance so that they can become mature adults that have some level of sense. That's what I am. That doesn't mean I'm their slave master. That means that they need that level of authority. But once they become adults, guess what? They don't need my authority any longer. They can go off on their own. They're doing their own thing. I'm responsible for raising my children up right and doing the right thing by them and guiding them and shaping them and molding them. That doesn't mean I'm their slave master. But that's his idea of what a slave master is. No, that's not what that is. A slave, you're a slave when you're an adult, right? Or even a child who is forced into a labor without any form of compensation and when you have no say-so over what you do. You're a slave when you have no authority over your life, right? Or when you have someone that can control what you do against your own will and without your consent, right? And that's why the only legitimate authority one person has over another is a parent over their child, because they can't operate. They can't live out there on their own without us until they reach a certain level of maturity, right? But anyway, he tried to say that I'm a slave master for my child until I sign their birth certificate and Social Security application. But you just said that a slave master can't be a slave. I mean, a slave can't be a slave master. I'm a slave master when my child is, I'm a slave to the system when my child is born, right? So even during that 5 minutes before I do sign them over to the government, I'm still not their slave master because I'm a slave. right? My slave masters have made it to where I'm in a position to where I have to sign them over. If anything, my children aren't even slaves until I sign them over to the government. When I sign them over to the government, that's when they become slaves. So I can't be a slave master to children that I haven't put into slavery yet. See what I'm saying? Y'all tell me if that makes sense. Because he's saying the opposite. But, you know, you can't get points like that across to him because he's quick to hit that mute button. I hate that shit. I don't even like going on other people's panels and having these type of dissents, having these type of discussions because, you know, they get in their feelings and they get into this little power. They get into this little power trip because they have control over everybody's mute button. You know what I'm saying? It's stupid. You know what I mean? Like like I said, I don't even like going into those type of panels unless I know it's somebody who appreciates dissent and wants people to speak their mind. If you're going into a panel where you know somebody is going to mute you just so that they can come across as having the superior intellect, then, you know, there's really no point in going in there if you disagree with them. So I won't be joining panels like that no more. I probably won't ever go into a person like Brother Sanchez's panel. I'm going to start creating my own panels where people will be allowed to speak their mind and won't have to worry about me hitting the mute button. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's crazy. Oh, hey, dude says, if you can think for yourself, you're not a slave. I mean, yeah, that's cool. You're a lesser degree of a slave, but I mean, I think for myself, and I'm still operating under this government rulership. You know what I'm saying? I'm a slave who can think for herself and wants to obtain that freedom. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Let me see. Oh, hey, dudes, you ain't no slave? I heard that, man. Own it. I ain't mad. See, and I ain't mad at people who want to say that, right? You know, I disagree, but hey, I ain't mad at him for, you know, owning what he is. He said he's not a slave. That's cool. They took down Rashid Battar's, another on topic. These people ain't shit, man. Yeah, please hit that like button. AZ Infidel says his argument only works if you allow him to define the terms. Exactly. If you are a godly man, on the other hand, you have a serious responsibility to your children. Exactly. You have a serious exactly. So just because you're responsible for your children's upbringing and you have to raise them up and they have to fall under your guidance and your authority doesn't make you a slave master to them. But when you sign that birth certificate, right? When you sign that birth certificate and get them that social security number, you're signing them over into slavership, not to you, but to the government. They're not your slave. They're the government slave at that point. Oh, hey, dude says, Bane, I'll debate you on anything so you can get an intelligent debate. That's what's up. I'm gonna start doing panels. A total waste of time to converse with woke types. No, I feel you. Darius C. Williams. As far as Social Security goes, I never seen any factual proof getting your child a Social Security number. Yeah, there's really no proof to that. But the idea is that Social Security number is like a serial number. It puts them in the system. It puts them in the government system, and they're now under the authority of the government. I mean, because that's what it is, right? You get your child a Social Security number, they're in the system now. You get them a birth certificate, they're in the system now, and they can benefit from some of the things that are beneficial from the government, and they also fall under that authority and that rulership. So, you know, and without that, if you don't get that for them, but you're self-sufficient and self-reliant and you're not dependent on the government at all, then you're good to go. That's why I want to start a panel, because I'd love to discuss these points of view with you guys. I don't do StreamYard for the exact thing you said here. What's that, Darius C. Williams? I'm just one man in the comment section on YouTube. I don't consider myself woke. Yeah, I don't either. Video forthcoming, Dr. Bombay, about people on panels. Folks, when you agree, want you to agree with their point of view, and if not, you are the crazy. Exactly. And that's what happened last night. That's a perfect example. Perfect example of what happened last night. The only thing I found concerning is that once you get a social security number, exactly, and that's the point, AZ Infidel. There's no way to opt out of the system. So you then become a slave to the system. It's just a word, right? At the end of the day, it is what it is. And if you can't opt out of the system, you fall under that system's rulership, or the people that operate that system's rulership. So the key is to eliminate that system, right? You can go ahead and get your sovereignty card, but you know, at the end of the day, it's a symbol. It's symbolic. And I can't do nothing with a fucking symbol. And then he starts talking about signatures and sigil nature and all this, like, and then how our signature is worth a lot of money and you can get your straw man bank account money. Like, okay, all that's fine and dandy, but if you cannot operate out of this system, it don't matter how sovereign you think you are. It's just a fucking symbol with all that money you got. There's a lot of people with a lot of money, right, that are part of the elite class or operate directly under the elite class, that if they step out of line, they will get shut down. A la John McAfee. You understand that? A la John McAfee. He bucked. And guess what? He got nucked. He got nucked. He nucked if he bucked. Oh man, I will have a live panel. Yes. Oftentimes, when you go on these panels, it's almost always one person to kill the spirit of the panel, or they know more than anyone else, which is why I don't host panels. Oh, I hear you. I don't really want to, I want to, it's not necessarily host a panel, but I want to put a panel on my platform so people can speak their mind on the subjects that I like to talk about. But I'm not going to mute anybody unless, because, you know, I believe in free speech no matter what. But, you know, if everybody's talking at the same time and no one can get their point across and no one can hear, that's not free speech. So at that point, I'd be like, look, let's chill. No one can understand or hear what you're saying. Let's start over. Make your point, blah, blah, blah. I would like for people to not interrupt. I don't really like giving rules, but this is what I would like. Because I believe in freedom and because I believe in free speech, right? And I don't like the idea of having authority over other men. I want to do it like this. I will ask anybody that comes up to the panel to, when someone's speaking, let them make their point. Let's not interrupt, blah, blah, blah. And that's all I can do. That's all I can do. That's all I can ask of them. I can't just be, you know what I mean? Hold on. What I don't want is like I'm the supreme ruler of the panel. Because first of all, it's not my panel, right? StreamYard does not belong to me, right? YouTube does not belong to me. God damn it. It's really their shit. So I'm just, using their platform under my channel name or whatever to make this happen. But hold on. Shit. So, I mean, ooh, it felt good to take that thing off. So this is my thing, man. I would love to have panel discussion. I love to hear dissenting voices and all the other shit. You know what I'm saying? I would just ask that people, respect other people while they're talking. Let them finish their thought. I'm not here to be the supreme ruler of the panel and all that other shit. I don't believe in that. Like, oh, this is my show. I'm gonna hit the mute button. You shut up and let me finish what I got to say because blah blah blah. Like, that's stupid. Michael Swan says I'm slave to this channel. You funny, man. Yeah, I'm in charge of the panel to a degree, but I'm not like I feel like it's not very productive to like act like you're the king of the panel. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not good, in my opinion. Not trying to be rude, Game with Stan says, but why do you care so much about Tatum? We all know the apocalypse is coming with a low sperm count. I believe it's sites. I believe it's cities. Game with Stan? Why do I care so much about Brandon Tatum? I don't care about Brandon Tatum. I care about the bullshit that he's spewing to the millions of people, right? To the millions of people, the bullshit. I care about the bullshit he's spreading, the slave mentality that he is influencing on the people that follow him. That's what I care about. I don't care about Brandon Tatum as a person, right? I have no feelings about him personally. But because he has all these people, right, that support him and his voice has so much reach, I feel like he's dangerous spewing the rhetoric that he's spewing. So I like to counter that. I like to say, look, this is why what Brandon Tatum says makes no fucking sense, right? What's up, OG Bigfoot? I hate echo chambers. Derek C. Williams. It's a bunch of yelling. Let me know when you're going to do it. For sure. I'm going to do it soon. Because I think it's important, man. I'm tired of going to other people's panels. And, they act like they're fucking gods. I'm the god of the panel. Dude, these are power trippers. You can tell, like, okay, I wouldn't want them to be I wouldn't want them to be any form of leader of mine, right? I wouldn't want them to be my leader. Yeah, some panels are big setup to make the panel host look good and to make other people look stupid and all this other shit. It's like, that's not how you get, that's not productive. It's all good, OG Bigfoot. There's who said, I just did a video on Tatum. I don't listen to him, but it's good study, folks. A former Democrat that says he got red pilled. Now he's a staunch Republican. Two wings of the same bird, in my view. Yeah, he's a staunch Republican, but not only that, he is a badge shiner of the police, right? He wants you to submit to the police authority, but he wants limited government. He wants limited government. But he wants the police to be able to operate as they choose. He doesn't want qualified immunity to go away. He doesn't want the police officer to be held responsible for anything. And so this is the type of shit that I feel needs to be countered and broken down, because that dude is dangerous, man. He's keeping people asleep. He's not telling people the truth. He's lying. He's lying to people all the time, and that's bullshit. So I'm gonna call him out on it. You should be. OG Bigfoot says, "Yeah, man, you should be able to live and let live. You stay out of my bedroom, I stay out of your freedom." Exactly. Yeah, man, you should be able to express your opinion without being outcast by people who don't agree. Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know. But it is what it is. Maybe one day he can come on my panel and we can have a discussion and he can see how it should be done, right? Let him speak, let him say what he gotta say. I don't need to launch ad hominems and personal attacks at you in a debate or a debate. Now, it wasn't a real debate. And he got mad about that. He got mad because I said it wasn't he wasn't giving a real debate. That's not a debate. All right? A bunch of dudes mouthing off to each other or arguing and cutting each other. That's not a debate, right? The debate has structure. And the host or moderator of a debate cannot be debating himself. He said that he was the host and the debater. I said there's no debate without a moderator. You can't. There's no debate without. Debate has structure, right? What we're doing is just arguing. We're arguing. That's basically what we're doing. That's just, or we're having a heated discussion or a disagreement. That's what we're having. He's a good dude on duty Ron. Sometimes sounds as if police do not wrong that much, but more palatable than Tatum. Who are you talking about? Duty Ron, okay. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. I gotta get going. If you call someone stupid in a debate, you're reaching. Yeah, because that's what he did. He called me stupid because I pointed out his contradiction, because he felt like I was missing the point. No, you contradicted yourself. And that's the point I'm making, right? That's the point I'm making. You can't, well, you can, but yeah, if you contradicting yourself, you're trying to prove a point and you're launching all these contradictions, like you can't get mad when somebody pointed out and then try to say they're stupid because, oh, you're missing the point. You're not getting what I'm saying, brother. You're not getting what I'm saying. No, I do get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. But you're stuck in you stuck in this cognitive dissonance, and that's why you're contradicting yourself. You're suffering under cognitive dissonance, point blank and period. Point blank and period. What's up, Jay with Open Eyes 4? I appreciate that, Darren C. Williams. I appreciate that, Anarchy. You think I'd be a great leader. I appreciate that. Brandon, soften him up, Tatum. All right, guys. Much love. And holla at y'all later. And yeah, like, share, subscribe. Peace.